Welcome to the Beyond Bloated Podcast. I'm Carly, a certified health coach helping women under 50 ditch their bloat without having to follow super strict and stressful protocols. As someone who's struggled with all sorts of digestive issues for over 5 years, I know exactly how you're feeling. I also know that there's a way to feel better, and it doesn't have to involve tons of expensive supplements and insanely restrictive diets. Join me as I share all of my bloat-busting wisdom to help you say goodbye to that bloated belly and regain your confidence. It's time for you to move beyond bloated. Hello. I was just doing some digging into my podcast analytics. You may or may not know this about me, but I am a mathematics girly. I have a math degree. So I love looking at numbers and stats and all those things. So I went on to the Apple Podcasts stats section in particular, and I found a fun surprise for me. I didn't realize that I could have written reviews on Apple Podcasts. I use Spotify myself. Spotify, you can only leave a star rating, whereas I guess on Apple Podcasts, you can write things. And someone wrote something. So I apologize that it has taken me about a month to realize this was there, but I'm going to read it out for you because I was very excited when I found it. Someone gave this podcast 5 stars, and their review title is Becoming Bloat Free. This was written by Latina Soul Survivor. I'm loving this podcast. Carly is a wealth of information with all things gut related. What a gift. Thank you so much. I was actually so excited when I found this review. I ran into my boyfriend's computer room and disrupted his game, and I was like, look, someone wrote something nice about me, and it was very exciting. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. If anyone else wants to make my day and go write a cool review on Apple Podcasts, apparently you can do that. So please head there, give this podcast a review, and maybe next time I'll be reading your review out loud. Super exciting. I've also added another new feature to the podcast called Send Me a Text. You should see the button in the show notes. It's like at the very top, and it's just a clickable link that says Send Me a Text. It's not my personal number, so you cannot prank call me, but you can text me about the podcast. Unfortunately, I can't text back, so if you send me a text, I'll receive it, I'll read it, and I'll address it on one of the upcoming episodes. So do me a favor and test this feature out for me. So click that link, send me a text, and just text me hi, or text me something like if you have a request for an upcoming episode, a topic you want to hear, text me that. Text me whatever you want. I just want to see that the feature is working, and also it's just really fun hearing from you guys. So give that a try for me. I'd really appreciate it. All right, so going back to the analytics thing that I was talking about at the beginning, I was checking out all my episodes. This is episode 9 now, believe it or not. My most listened to episode to date is about my gut health journey. So that was episode 2. If you haven't heard that one, check it out. Apparently it is the most popular one that I've put out so far. In that episode, I talked all about my past unhealthy habits and how they eventually caught up to me and ruined my gut. I then developed food intolerances, bloating, tons of other GI symptoms, etc. So what I want to talk about today are all the other not so obvious symptoms that were related to my gut health. I know it's very easy to associate poor gut health with stereotypical gut issues such as gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, all those things. But we often overlook the crucial role that our gut plays in every single aspect of our health. I learned this firsthand by improving my own gut health and then watching all these ailments that I had no clue were connected to my gut disappear. I think you'll find this episode very eye-opening and interesting. Whenever I get frustrated by my gut health because I have a flare or something is happening that I'm like, why isn't my gut health perfect? I like to think back on how far I have come. So this episode will also be a really nice reminder for myself and for me to really put into perspective all the hard work and time I have spent learning and improving my gut health and how much it's really paid off for me. I'm now the healthiest version of myself that I have literally ever been in my entire life, and that's quite the accomplishment. So here we go. Let's talk about all of the things that were wrong with me when I lived a super unhealthy lifestyle. I'm not going to talk about my GI symptoms because I've talked about those enough in other episodes. I'm just going to talk about the symptoms that I was experiencing that you would not expect to be related to gut health. So number one on my list are canker sores. If you don't know what a canker sore is, you're so lucky. They form in your mouth, either on your tongue or your lips or your cheek, but like inside of the mouth. So different from a cold sore. They kind of look like little white specks on your tongue or your cheek or even on your gums. I've had them on my gums before. And then they kind of just start to grow bigger and bigger as the days go on until they're so massive and extremely painful that you can't eat, drink, or live your life without being in so much pain. And I used to get these all the time. Like if I bit my tongue or my lip or something like that, guaranteed was turning into a canker sore. But I would also just get them out of the blue. Like I wouldn't do anything in particular, and they would just start forming in my mouth. Very painful. There was one time that I went on vacation to Miami with my friend, and I had 5 canker sores in my mouth at the same time. I don't think you understand the amount of pain I was in. I was supposed to be on vacation, like enjoying myself. I could not eat or drink. I couldn't even talk. Like when it hit its peak and they were all 5 of them in my mouth, I could not speak. So there was like a day or two when I was on vacation with my friend that I hardly even spoke to her because it was so painful. I can't exactly remember when I started getting canker sores, but I feel like it was in my teenage years. Like I feel like I was even getting these canker sores in high school. I had them all through university. I had them when I left university. I was still developing them. Like I went to Miami after I had finished university. So I had canker sores for probably 10 plus years of my life consistently. And I don't get them anymore. I actually had one not that long ago, and it like triggered a memory. I was like, oh my God, I haven't had one of these in so long. I got it like probably a month ago, and it's because I bit my lip. And I've bit my lip tons of times when in between that, and I didn't develop a canker sore. But this one, for some whatever reason, I did get a canker sore. And yeah, it was not nearly as bad. Like it took a couple days to go away. It was not as painful. It didn't get as big. It didn't ruin my life like the other ones have. And yeah, it just reminded me. It actually triggered a memory for me. And that's kind of what prompted me to do this episode, because I was like, wow, I've completely forgot that I used to get canker sores all the time. And now I rarely ever get them. Like I've probably had, I want to say, one this entire year. Number 2 on my list is dry, itchy skin, specifically on my legs and my scalp. There were a couple instances where this got really bad. There was for my scalp, I have really dark hair, so it's almost black. So if I have dandruff, it's super noticeable. And I went through probably like 2 years of like really bad, dry, itchy skin on my scalp, very bad dandruff. I ended up buying this like super expensive Sephora kit for like dry scalp. Of course, it didn't work or help or do anything like that. And at the same time, I had very dry, itchy legs to the point where I would scratch them so often and so hard that they would start to bleed. So I had like scabs on my legs from scratching them. I tried all these different lotions for that as well. I even tried buying like high quality, fragrance-free lotions, things like that. Nothing really helped with my scalp or my legs. And now I don't use any sort of fancy dandruff shampoo. I do not have dandruff. I do not have an itchy scalp. My legs, I do use Aveeno extra moisture or something like that. If I shave my legs with a shitty razor, they get a little irritated. But other than that, I don't have itchy legs. I do not scratch them. They used to keep me up at night. Like I literally wouldn't be able to sleep because my legs would be so itchy. That's not a problem anymore. And like I said, I am not using any specific product to fix my itchiness or my dry, scalpy dandruff. It's just gone. It just is gone. I'm not doing anything. I'm not using an expensive product to fix the problem. It fixed itself. Number 3, I think, is going to be very relatable for many of you. Chronic fatigue. And honestly, I don't even think I realized that I was chronically fatigued until I was no longer chronically fatigued. And then I was like, what? You don't have to feel super exhausted all the time. That's, whoa, what a mind blow. So yeah, I would sleep. I slept a lot. Like when I was younger, and not even that young, like I'm saying 20, 21, 22, I would sleep until 11 a.m. on the weekends. When I started working full time, obviously you can't sleep until 11 a.m. So I would have to get up early for my job and I would be exhausted. Like opening my eyes was so difficult. They were so heavy. I would get to work and I would literally be struggling to stay awake at my desk. You know, when your eyes just kind of start to close, that was the feeling I had like every day at my job. Didn't help that it was super boring, but it's not normal. Like I was sleeping a lot. I was getting more than 8 hours of sleep every night. And you shouldn't feel like you got hit by a bus if you're sleeping 8 hours every night. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago now was when I noticed the change. I actually did a candida cleanse. And I'm not saying everybody needs to do a candida cleanse, but I did. And during this candida cleanse, I didn't eat sugar and a bunch of other things. But the point is, after the candida cleanse, I was no longer chronically fatigued. Like, I had so much more energy. I used to be so tired throughout the day. Like, I no longer am tired at all during the day. I don't need to nap. Napping would mess me up. When my alarm goes off at 7 a.m., yes, I'm sleepy. But once I get up, I'm up. I'm fine. I have energy for the day. Yes, I'm tired by the time my bedtime rolls around at like 10 p.m., but that's normal. You know, I'm up at 7. I go to bed at 10-ish. I require about 9 hours of sleep. Personally, that's like my sweet spot. If I get 8, I'm still okay. Less than 8, I'm struggling a bit, but women need 8 to 10 hours of sleep. That's normal. So as long as I get that 8 to 9 hours of sleep, I have energy to last me the whole day. And I, again, am not doing anything different for that. I'm not taking any sort of sleeping medication. I do not take melatonin. I don't take anything to help me sleep. And I feel great. I also don't get that afternoon crash that a lot of people experience, usually between 5 p.m. You kind of hit a wall and you're like, God, I'm exhausted. Doesn't happen to me anymore. Moving on to number 4. This is probably also very relatable. Painful periods. When I was in high school, I had such terrible period pain. I would be like curled up in a ball on my bed, crying. It would just feel like stab, stab, stab for hours. Horrible pain. Then I went to university and I went on the pill. That helped my symptoms, but we all know, or we should know, that is a masking technique. The pill does not regulate your period. It does not make everything better for you. It messes up your hormones and messes up your gut health. But 18-year-old me didn't know that. So anyway, I go on birth control. My period pain subsides. It's not bad anymore. I stayed on the pill for about 7 or 8 years. And then that was kind of when I started getting a little bit more into gut health. I started to think that I might have endometriosis. It was a whole whirlwind of things. But anyway, the point is I decided that I was going to switch out my birth control pills for an IUD. So I ended up getting an IUD, which is an extremely painful process for anyone who's curious. And I had the IUD for about 2 or 3 years. And the IUD essentially stopped my period. Like I think I would bleed maybe one day in a month and it was super, super light. So I essentially just didn't get my period for like 2 to 3 years, which also isn't great. IUD, I was on the hormonal IUD, so not the copper one. And again, it's still synthetic hormones being pumped into our bodies. It's not the same as regular hormones. It's going to mess things up. So about 2 years ago, I did some deep diving into hormones and all these things. And I realized how hormonal birth control, can put your body into an estrogen dominance and how estrogen dominance can cause bloating, food sensitivities, a whole shitload of problems. And I was like, okay, I don't want these problems. I already have these problems and maybe hormonal birth control is contributing to this, making my symptoms worse. So I was like, I'm done. I'm done with birth control. I don't want to be on it anymore. So I was very nervous because I used to get really painful periods and I had been on hormonal birth control for 10 years now. So I don't actually know what my period is like. If you are a woman who cycles, your period is such a good indicator of your health. So if you're experiencing irregular periods or extreme pain, that's a huge red flag that something is wrong. Your period should not be painful. I know it's normalized. It's like, oh, it's that time. I'm going to take off work. I'm in pain. I can't do anything. I can't go out. I can't work out. I can't live. I can't live my life because I'm bleeding for 4 to 7 days. That's not normal, okay? And I'm going to tell you my experience. I was that person back in high school, went on birth control for 10 years, didn't know what I was getting into, but I was like, whatever, I'm just going to do it. I'm coming off birth control. So I did. I got my IUD removed and I was completely fine. For 2 years now, I have been regular. My cycle is 28 days, almost to the T, sometimes a day or two off, but rarely. Almost zero pain. I would say 9 times out of 10, I experience zero pain. I don't even know that my period has started because I have no pain. And that one time that I do get pain, it lasts about an hour, and it's nothing like what I used to experience. It's very mild cramping to the point where you're like, okay, I'm getting my period. About an hour later, it subsides. I drink organic raspberry leaf tea about 2 or so days before my period is expected. It's supposed to help with menstrual cramping and things like that. I do find that it helps. When I do get my period that one time out of 10, when it's a little painful, I'll drink a cup of that and the pain goes away. I don't know if it's a placebo, honestly. I'm not saying it's going to work for you guaranteed, but it's not going to hurt. It's an organic herbal tea. But yeah, my period from when I was in high school is so easy. I don't even care when I get my period. Also, 4 days bleeding and I'm done. Super light, not a problem. I don't care when I'm going to get my period because it doesn't impact my life whatsoever anymore. Symptom number 5 is kind of related to my period. So this one is night sweats. I used to sweat buckets when I would sleep. And it got really bad for probably about a year when I was working at Cineplex. So this was when I was drinking a lot. I was staying up late. I was eating terribly. I was getting sick all the time, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit. But yeah, I would have to change my pajamas during the middle of the night multiple times because I have sweat through them. I'm not talking I wake up and I'm a little damp, drenched. I just went swimming. My hair is stuck to my neck. My top is soaking wet. My legs, I sleep in shorts, are slippery, sweaty. Sorry for the disgusting images. I need you to understand. These night sweats were extreme, and I would have them just so often. I went through, I think, 25 t-shirts in a week. I sleep in shorts and a t-shirt. It was so bad. I will say that this is one symptom that I have not completely eliminated. I used to get sweaty all the time, no matter what. I have since learned that night sweats can be a PMS symptom. So I don't get stereotypical PMS symptoms. Like I said, my periods are super easy. But the one thing that I do experience now are night sweats, a day or two before I'm about to get my period. I can tell you when I'm going to get my period just based off of when I sweat at night. So yeah, probably the day before I'm supposed to get my period, I will be extremely sweaty when I sleep to the point where I have to change my pajamas. But the bright side is it is now 1 to 2 days a month. I can predict it. I know when it's coming. I'll sleep with the window open and a light sheet that night because I'm I know I'm about to sweat. And yeah, I've tried talking to naturopaths and I've done my own research on it. It sounds like the cause for me as a PMS symptom is right before you get your period, your hormones shift drastically. So your estrogen and your progesterone drop. They're at the lowest point that they will ever be in your cycle. And for whatever reason, this significant change heats my body up, and that is my PMS symptom. So I have not completely eliminated night sweats, but I used to sweat almost every single day, and now it's very predictable. And yeah, it's not super awesome waking up sweaty, but I'm working on it. Maybe one day it'll go away. Who knows? Symptom number 6. I've talked about this one before. UTIs, urinary tract infections. Oh boy, these were terrible. I used to get these all the time, especially probably university years and also like a few years out of university. I would go to the doctor 3-4 times within a 6-month period asking for antibiotics because I had another UTI. This was a vicious cycle because antibiotics destroy gut health. Antibiotics kill the bacteria in your gut, good and bad. They don't differentiate. They don't give a shit. They're going in there and they're wiping out everything. So yes, if you have an infection, you need antibiotics to clear up that infection, but you're also destroying all of the good gut bacteria in your microbiome that would help prevent the infection in the first place. So antibiotics can be life-saving. They're also terrible. I have nothing against medicine, but if you don't need it, do not take it because it is doing damage. And I took antibiotics so much in a short period of time that it is no wonder that my gut health was so bad. Like I had annihilated my good gut bacteria and I wasn't taking probiotics to replenish it. I wasn't doing anything. I just, every few months, I would go and take another round of antibiotics because I had another UTI. And that was making me more susceptible to UTIs because I had no good gut bacteria to help fight off infections. The 7th symptom that I'm going to talk about is related to UTIs. So I would get UTIs so often, I knew the symptoms. As soon as I felt that feeling, if you've ever had a UTI, you know what I'm talking about. I would go to the doctor and be like, yeah, I have a UTI. You know, they would make you pee in the cup, but my doctor anyway wouldn't verify that I had a UTI before giving me antibiotics. It was kind of like if you go there and you say, yeah, I have these UTI symptoms. I have a UTI. They're like, yeah, okay, sure. Here you go. Nobody verifies, nobody checks it. So this happened to me where I went to the doctor, told her my symptoms. I've had UTIs in the past, so she's like, okay, here's your antibiotics. Bye. So I go home and take my antibiotics. My supposed UTI clears up, but then like a month later, same symptoms. I go back again. And when I go back this time, she pulls up my file and she's like, oh, the last time you were here for a UTI, you didn't actually have a UTI. And I was like, what? Like, nobody called me or told me that. So I went home, took antibiotics for a UTI, but my urine sample came back saying, no, not a UTI. So I was like, what the hell? And she was like, oh yeah, well, kidney stones can present as UTIs. So she was like, go get an ultrasound for kidney stones. So I did. And sure enough, I had kidney stones. So fun fact, kidney stones and UTIs can have the same symptoms. So I had very small ones, luckily, and they told me, you know, just drink a lot of water and they'll pass and you'll be fine. But I no longer get UTIs or / kidney stones because my doctor apparently doesn't differentiate between the two. So I could have had a lot more kidney stones incidences than I'm aware of because I had so many UTIs in a short period of time. Who knows how many of those actually were UTIs and how many were just kidney stone symptoms. But either way, I don't experience either anymore. Thank God, because those were so bad. Rolling with this infection theme. Symptom number 8, I've talked about this one before as well. Throat infections. This was at least an annual thing for me, if not twice a year. I would get super bad throat infections. They would last like a week or more. Couldn't sleep, eat, drink, just like such inflammation in my throat. It would be so red and raw and painful. Oh, thinking about it is like PTSD. And then I would get to the point where like I hated going to the doctor even before I became obsessed with gut health. Like I just didn't like going to the doctor. So I would wait and wait and wait. And then eventually it'd get to the point where I was having like a mental breakdown because I haven't slept or ate in like a week. And so I was like, okay, I have to go to the doctor. So I go to the walk-in clinic. I have them look at my throat. They swab it every single time without fail. Comes back negative for strep throat. But I would beg them for antibiotics because I'd be like, listen, this has been going on for a week. It's not getting any better. I've been here before because this happens to me every year. I get antibiotics and it clears up, but then it comes back the next year or even sooner. So they would give me antibiotics. All you got to do is ask, apparently. So I would take the antibiotics. The throat infection would go away. But like I said, it would come back. And again, I'm taking more antibiotics. So I'm taking antibiotics for throat infections and for UTIs/kidney stones, apparently. So I'm loaded up on antibiotics during this time period. And that's so bad for my gut. I didn't know, so I just keep doing this over and over again. But since I went gluten and dairy free almost 6 years ago now, that was when I started my gut health journey, I have not had a single throat infection. I have not had any kidney stones. And I only had one UTI, and that was because I accidentally ate gluten for 3 days in a row without knowing that I was doing so. That caused me to have an infection and a lot of other terrible problems. But the point is, I haven't done anything different. I'm not taking any medication. I'm not taking preventative measures to stop these things from happening. I simply just improved my gut health. I just eat better, I exercise, I sleep well, I do all the things that you should be doing, and I don't get infections anymore. 0. Believe it or not, my list is still going. So we're on number 9, seasonal allergies. When I was in university, I developed seasonal allergies. So I didn't have them when I was a kid or anything. They just appeared out of nowhere. And every September, I would get super itchy eyes. They'd go all red and puffy. I used to wear contacts before I got my eyes lasered, and I had to take my contacts out for the month of September and wear my glasses, which I hated because I could not put things in my eye. I'd have runny nose, just, typical seasonal allergy symptoms. And I would get these every September until I did that Candida cleanse. Yeah, I did the Candida cleanse, and I don't have seasonal allergies anymore at all at any point during the year. I moved to BC, and people say that allergies are worse here because there's a lot of pollen, there's a lot of flowers, a lot of forests and trees and things. So people say oh yeah, my allergies are really bad in, the spring or whatever. Right now we're in spring, and I went out and cleaned my balcony because over the winter it gets all disgusting. So I cleaned my balcony last week, and it was covered in pollen. The floor was yellow. The tables, the chairs, the cushions, I had to wipe everything down because it was just covered in pollen. And I was like, wow, this is going to be quite the test because I'm just covered in pollen at this point. I didn't have a single symptom, and I haven't had a single seasonal allergy symptom since I did that Candida cleanse 3 or 4 years ago. Okay, we've made it to my final symptom. Number 10, I had such low immunity. It was so bad. I would get sick in university almost every single month. It was cold symptoms or flu symptoms, just, stuffy nose, tired, sore throat, those stupid sore throat infections that I would get. If anyone around me was sick, I was catching it. No question asked. Even if no one around me was sick, I somehow just created my own illness and I would get sick. I was sick all the time. And not only was I sick all the time, but they would linger and they would last forever. I remember one in particular. This was when I was working at Cineplex again. I got some sort of respiratory thing. And I was coughing so hard and so often that I was at work and I coughed so hard that I heard something pop in my chest. And then I just felt this pain. I don't actually know what happened because I didn't go to the doctor. But I'm thinking I dislocated a rib or something happened. And my friends at work had to drive me home because I could not drive. I couldn't sit up. I was in so much pain. And I just had to lay on my couch for days until whatever happened kind of repaired itself. But at the same time, I was still coughing. So that was very painful. And these things happened all the time. I would just get sick. It would get really bad. And my symptoms would linger for so long. I had no immunity. I had nothing in me fighting off these germs, the viruses. And in case you were unaware, about 70 to 80% of your immune cells reside in your gut. if you have poor gut health, you have poor immunity. And I had both. Now, I rarely ever get sick. I went through about a 4-year span during COVID when I did not get sick one time. I then moved to BC and I moved in with my boyfriend. And I have been sick a couple times during these last 2 years, but it hasn't been nearly as bad as it used to be. And my boyfriend has been sick probably like 3 or 4 times more than I have. And we live together. We share a small space, and I did not catch his cold 3 or 4 times. So my immunity is so much stronger now than it ever was. And that's just because I improved my gut health. Sadly, I didn't start improving my gut health until my GI symptoms kicked in. So it was the bloating and the food sensitivities and the diarrhea that triggered me to realize something is wrong and that I need to start improving my lifestyle. I had all of these symptoms that I just listed well before my GI symptoms kicked in. So ultimately, my body was sending me warning signals, telling me, you're unhealthy, something is wrong. But I had no clue that's what they were. I just thought, these are symptoms that I experience. I have bad genes. I'm susceptible to UTIs, yada, yada, yada. I would go to the doctor multiple times in a year for antibiotics. Nobody would question why I keep coming back, why I keep developing these infections. They would just hand me antibiotics and send me out the door. Obviously, everybody is different. So these symptoms that I experienced are unique to me and my own body. There are so many other non-GI related symptoms that can be eliminated by improving your gut health. Acne, brain fog, anxiety, and depression are just a few. I personally didn't experience those, but I know of so many other people who do. I truly believe that every aspect of our health is connected to the gut. I'm assuming that you listen to this podcast because you have some sort of gut issue happening, probably bloating, but think about the other ailments that you have. I bet that you can see improvements in other aspects of your health if you work on improving your gut health. And what do you have to lose anyway? A healthier gut? If you want to get started for free, hit up my website and grab my ultimate guide to bloat busting, beyondbloated.com/ultimate-guide. Yes, it's going to help with bloating, but that's because bloating is a sign of a gut that needs some TLC, just like so many other symptoms out there. Plus, it's a free resource. So give it a try to get you started on your journey to experiencing less symptoms in general. And let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear your feedback and any progress that you've made. So send me an email, carlyclose@beyondbloated.com. Send me a text through my new Send Me a Text feature on this podcast, or DM me on Instagram @beyond.bloated. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for listening to the Beyond Bloated podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to share this podcast with your fellow gut goddesses. If you'd like to chat about today's episode, send me a DM on Instagram @beyond.bloated. Until next time, bye!